A sleepy cul-de-sac in northern South Carolina exploded into unexpected tension one bright Saturday morning, all because a pair of self-appointed enforcers, backed by the local homeowners association president, decided to confront a man they never should have laid hands on. It was one of those peaceful mornings that felt frozen in time. Lawnmowers hummed lazily from backyards, sprinklers ticked across freshly trimmed grass, and children on bicycles zigzagged down the asphalt without a care. Nothing about the day hinted at what was about to unfold. Darius Holt pushed open the front door of his red brick bungalow, a trash bag swinging from his hand, his mind on nothing more than chores and coffee. He took 3 easy steps toward the curb before halting mid-stride. 3 figures blocked the edge of his driveway. 2 men in black tactical cut vests flanked a woman in a crisp pastel blazer. Eleanor Whitfield, the president of the Crestwood Park Homeowners Association. The men's vests bore cheaply stitched patches that read, Neighborhood Compliance Unit. Their posture was rigid and theatrical, like actors in a low-budget police drama. But to Darius, who had spent a career analyzing body language and spotting trouble long before it arrived, the facade crumbled instantly. Their boots were worn down, straps dangled loose from their rigs, and their expressions betrayed too much eagerness, too much adrenaline. "Mr. Holt?" Eleanor called, her tone slicing through the quiet street. "We need a word." Darius lowered the trash, bagged gently to the driveway, and planted his hands on his hips, calm and composed. "About what exactly?" he asked. One of the men stepped forward, tall, pale, his shaved scalp glinting in the sunlight, mirrored shades hiding whatever passed for authority in his eyes. "Neighborhood compliance," he announced flatly. "You're in violation of community regulations. We're detaining you here until law enforcement arrives." The words hit the air like a bad punchline. "Detaining me?" Darius repeated, his voice low and edged with dry amusement. Eleanor crossed her arms in a show of resolve. "We've sent notice after notice. You've ignored them all. This has gone beyond warnings. Mr. Holt, we cannot allow anyone to defy community standards. These gentlemen are here to make sure you follow the rules." Darius's eyes swept slowly from Eleanor to the 2 self-styled officers, his expression calm but sharpened with quiet authority. "And what exactly," he asked evenly, "am I being accused of?" The second man, shorter, barrel-chested, his beard a scruffy mess that did little to make him look official, tugged a folded sheet of paper from the pouch on his vest. "Code violations," he declared. "Failure to comply with HOA directives. Unauthorized changes to your driveway. Repeated noise disturbances. Disregard for neighborhood ordinances. The list's long." A dry laugh slipped from Darius before he could stop it. "So," he said, tilting his head, "that's your justification for trespassing onto my property? To detain me?" The taller man's jaw flexed, irritation flickering across his face. "That's right," he said coldly. "You can come along quietly, or we can make this harder than it needs to be." For a heartbeat, the entire street seemed to hold its breath. Curtains twitched in nearby windows. A porch door creaked open. Somewhere, a smartphone lens was already aimed their way. Darius's voice cut through the heavy silence. "There's no such thing as a neighborhood compliance unit. You're not law enforcement. You have 0 legal authority. And as of this moment, you're trespassing on private property." Eleanor's cheeks flushed crimson. "Don't you lecture me about authority, Mr. Holt," she snapped. "We've received legitimate complaints. I won't stand by and watch this community deteriorate because of one man's arrogance." Darius didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His words fell like a quiet thunderclap. "You've chosen the wrong driveway this morning." The taller man stepped forward, boots grinding against the concrete. "Sir," he warned, his tone stiff, "don't make this difficult. Your refusal to comply gives us the right to escalate." A faint, razor-edged smile tugged at Darius's lips. "Escalate?" he echoed. "You're trespassing on my property, wearing costumes, carrying no badge, wielding no authority, and you have no clue just how deep you're in. I'm giving you 30 seconds to walk away before this turns into a mistake you'll never forget." Eleanor spun toward him, irritation flaring hotter. "You think threats solve anything? You've ignored notices, disregarded fines, dismissed every warning we've sent. The association exists to keep this neighborhood secure and dignified. People like you. She stopped herself mid-sentence, her lips clamping shut as if she'd almost said too much. Have you ever watched someone twist their power, not to protect a community, but to control it? Before we go deeper into this confrontation, tell us, where are you tuning in from? Drop it in the comments below. We love hearing your thoughts. And if you agree that power should never be weaponized for prejudice, hit that like button and follow Trueline Stories, because real leadership is built on service, not control. Darius's gaze sharpened at Eleanor's half-finished remark, his eyes narrowing slightly. People like me, huh? He said quietly. Tread carefully with how you finish that sentence, Eleanor. The bearded man shifted his weight, glancing at the ground. Look, there's no reason for this to turn into a mess, he muttered. Just come with us. We'll wait here for the authorities. Maybe they'll go easy on you. Authorities? Darius repeated, his tone flat and laced with disdain. That's an interesting word choice, because the only so-called officers I see are you two jokers in knockoff vests playing pretend. The taller man stiffened, jaw muscles twitching. His partner flicked an uncertain glance toward Eleanor, but she stood firm, doubling down. These men are officially empowered by the HOA board to enforce compliance, she declared. We don't answer to you. A low chuckle slipped from Darius's chest. Listen to what you're saying, he replied. You dragged two grown men out here in discount store, gear to intimidate a homeowner. That's not how law works. The onlookers had multiplied now, faces peeking from porches, phones held discreetly aloft, whispers rippling through the late morning air. Darius lowered his voice, addressing the imposters directly but projecting his words, just loud enough for the neighbors to hear. You want real authority? It's earned. Through training, through law, through accountability. And I promise you, the real police will be extremely interested in this little charade. For the first time, doubt flickered across the tall man's face, but he pushed through it, stepping closer until he was just inches from Darius. If you resist, he hissed, we'll restrain you. Don't push me. I've stood face to face with cartel enforcers who had more restraint than you. Darius replied calmly, his tone cool as steel. Step back before this turns into something you can't walk away from. Eleanor tried to rally her confidence, drawing herself taller. Why should the rest of us follow the rules while you act like they don't apply? She demanded. We have a system, Darius. We have order. If you refuse to respect the system, Eleanor shot back, maybe you don't belong in this neighborhood. Respect isn't something you extract with fake badges and threats, Darius replied, locking eyes with her. It's something you earn. And this isn't about rules. It's about control. The words rolled down the block like a gavel striking wood. Heads turned. Neighbors nodded in agreement. The bearded man wiped a sheen of sweat from his forehead. Maybe we should wait out on the street, he muttered under his breath. No, the taller one hissed. We're not leaving. From the sidewalk, a teenager raised his phone higher. Darius recognized him, Jamal Ortiz from 3 houses down. Yo, Mr. Holt, the boy called. I've got you on live. There's thousands watching right now. The taller imposter whipped his head toward Jamal, barking, "Put that phone down!" and stepped toward him. Wrong move. Darius shifted instantly, his body sliding between the man and the teenager. His voice dropped to a dangerous calm. You even think about touching that kid, he said, and this ends here, now. The man froze mid-step. This is a community matter, Eleanor shouted, her voice pitching high. None of you should be interfering. A woman balancing a baby on her hip called from a porch across the street. Community matter? Looks like harassment to me. More voices rose from porches and lawns. This isn't right, someone shouted. Where'd you even find these guys? Another neighbor demanded. You can't arrest someone because their grass is too short. Darius waited until the noise settled before speaking again, his tone just loud enough to carry. Do you hear them, Eleanor? This isn't order. It's chaos. And you're the one who caused it. You're twisting this, she snapped back, but a tremor crept into her voice. You and people like you have always been the problem, bending the rules, ignoring the standards we built. Darius tilted his head, his eyes narrowing into a knife's edge. People like me? He repeated softly. The silence around them thickened. The problem, he continued, voice low but cutting, is that you confuse control with leadership. They're not the same thing. A fresh wave of murmurs swept through the crowd. The bearded imposter leaned toward his partner, his voice barely audible. "We should go," he whispered. "No, we finish this," the tall man growled, squaring his shoulders as if trying to make himself look larger. He leaned in close, his voice sinking to a low, menacing rasp. "Last chance. Come with us willingly or we'll use force." Darius almost laughed. "Is that really the play you want?" he asked, his tone dripping with disbelief. "Right here? In front of every witness on this street? With a dozen cameras pointed straight at you? Go ahead, show everyone exactly who you are." The man's eyes darted to the glowing screens, the rows of neighbors filming, the teens still live streaming. The weight of the moment pressed hard against his chest, but instead of backing down, he doubled down. He reached into his vest and pulled out a pair of flimsy, metallic cuffs, the kind that looked more like props than tools of authority. With a dramatic clink, he snapped them open. "You're under neighborhood arrest," he declared. A ripple of gasps tore through the crowd. Darius didn't flinch. When he spoke again, his voice had transformed, sharpened into the cold, precise cadence honed by years of high-stakes interrogations. "If you even attempt to put those cuffs on me," he said, "that's a felony. Impersonating an officer, unlawful detention, prison time." The man, Derek, felt his hand tremble. His partner, Malcolm, leaned closer, panic cracking his voice. "Derek, this is insane," he whispered. "We'll end up behind bars ourselves." But Eleanor, her pride hanging by a thread, barked out an order. "Do it! Show him who's in charge!" That was the breaking point. Pride overran reason. Derek lunged. But Darius was faster. In one seamless, fluid motion, but a sidestep, a twist, a snap, the situation flipped. The cheap cuffs Derek had raised in threat were now locked around his own wrists. The street erupted. "Did you see that?" a teenager shouted. "He turned it on him!" Another yelled, laughter and disbelief swirling through the air. Darius stood over Derek, calm and collected, his voice cutting through the uproar like a blade. "You're finished. Don't resist. It'll only make things worse." Eleanor's face went pale. "You can't arrest him!" she shrieked. "You're right," Darius replied, his tone so cold it silenced her instantly. "I can't, but I can detain him until actual law enforcement arrives." Malcolm stumbled backward, both hands raised in surrender. Terror etched across his features. "I'm out. I'm done," he blurted. "I never signed up for this. Lady, you never told us he was law enforcement." Darius's response was as calm as it was devastating. "That's because she didn't know." Eleanor blinked, her confidence crumbling. What are you talking about?" With one hand, Darius held Derek firmly in place. With the other, he reached into his back pocket and pulled out a worn leather wallet. In one smooth motion, he flipped it open for all to see. The sunlight caught the edge of the gold badge, sending a flash of light across the crowd and into the dozens of cameras still rolling. "My name," he said, his voice carrying across the stunned block, "is Special Agent Darius Holt, Federal Bureau of Investigation." The words hit harder than any shove, louder than any threat. Gasps rippled through the crowd as silence fell. Not the ordinary kind, but the heavy, breathless silence that meant everything had just shifted. The man they'd dismissed as just another homeowner was no ordinary neighbor. He was a federal agent. Darius's gaze stayed locked on Eleanor, his voice calm but unrelenting. "You trespassed on my property with imposters," he said evenly. "You believed intimidation would give you control. But you made one fatal mistake. You didn't do your homework. You had no idea who you were dealing with." Eleanor opened her mouth to snap back. But before she could speak, the rising wail of real sirens sliced through the stillness. Blue and red lights spilled across the block as a patrol cruiser rolled up to the curb. Two uniformed officers stepped out quickly, hands hovering near their holsters, eyes sweeping across the chaotic scene. One man cuffed on the driveway, another tearing off his vest in panic, and a whole neighborhood crowd pressing closer with cameras recording every second. The air was knife-sharp with tension. Darius didn't rush. He stood firm, adjusting his hold on Derek's cuffed wrists, then raised his free hand slowly, unfolding the worn leather wallet with deliberate precision. The gold badge gleamed in the late morning sun, not as a threat, but as a verdict. "Officers," he began, his voice steady and commanding, the kind of authority that needed no volume. "Special Agent Darius Holt, FBI." The block went silent. Even the whispers died away. He let the weight of the badge settle before continuing, each word precise. "The man in my custody attempted to impersonate law enforcement. He trespassed on private property, tried to place me under a fraudulent arrest, and then assaulted me. All of it in front of dozens of witnesses." He tilted his head slightly toward the rows of raised phones. Every second was recorded. "You won't be lacking evidence." The two officers exchanged a brief glance, then nodded. A flicker of respect passed between them as they stepped forward. Derek was hauled upright, still cuffed, but now in official custody. Malcolm tore off his vest and tossed it aside as if it burned. "I'm done. I'll cooperate," he stammered, voice cracking. "I didn't sign up for this." And then every eye turned to Eleanor. The lead officer stepped toward her, his tone measured but cutting. "Ma'am, did you authorize these men to act as law enforcement?" I was only trying to keep order," she stammered, her voice small and trembling. "Order?" Darius interjected, his tone razor-sharp. "You orchestrated a fake arrest to intimidate your own neighbor. That isn't order." The crowd roared in agreement. "We all saw it, Eleanor," someone shouted. "You set this whole thing up," another yelled. Eleanor's composure shattered. "You can't arrest me," she screamed. "I'm the HOA president." The lead officer's reply was merciless. "That title doesn't put you above the law. You're coming with us." And just like that, Eleanor Whitfield, once the self-appointed queen of the block, was escorted away under flashing red and blue lights. Neighbors who had once tiptoed around her now turned their backs, shaking their heads. Her reign was finished, and the entire street had witnessed its fall. Have you ever watched someone abuse their power only to have it collapse before everyone's eyes? And if you believe that justice always catches up to those who misuse authority, hit that like button and follow True Line Stories, because power built on fear is destined to crumble.